Welcome to Stop the Fight. And today we're talking about this weekend's fight between Navarrete and Diaz and all things boxing. Let's go.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
And he's strong man, good boy, just.
It's been a good year for boxing. I just watched the 12th round of that fight again. Wow. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch Navarrete's KO victory over Christopher Diaz that happened this past Saturday for the WBO featherweight title. Go check it out. What an amazing effort by Diaz and a great show of skill and power and wit by Navarrete. Now, that 12th round, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but it's up there for round of the year. Diaz, down on the scorecards, knocked down a plethora of times through the fight, no chance to win, comes out in the 12th round, already beat up, bloodied, swollen, swinging for the fences, swinging like his life depends on it, like his career depends on it, because partly it does. And he's landing. He's landing on Navarrete. Navarrete's definitely stung, now that I've seen it a second time. He's definitely stung a little bit in this 12th round. It was just the heart, and as I think Tim Bradley was saying, the emotion that Christopher Diaz was running on at that point. Because in a 12-round fight, by the 12th round, after taking this kind of punishment, this kind of damage, Diaz had no cardio, no tactics left. He was just fighting on will and resilience. You heard me say in earlier podcasts that a fighter is not just the athletic ability that one has. Like, yes, being a good athlete helps. Having power, snap, agility, all this is important. But perhaps the most important aspect of a fighter, or if you're going to be a successful fighter, is having that resilience, having that ability to get beat up and still come forward. It's very difficult. These things almost cannot be taught. They really cannot. I've said this story before, but back in the Soviet school, one of the days they would test you. If you said you wanted to go be a boxer or a fighter, they take you, they put you in the ring, they beat you up. They'd have a guy from the gym that knows how to fight, beat you up, beat you bad. And if you come back the next day, well, you have the characteristics of a fighter. You're ready to go. And if you didn't, it doesn't matter how fast you are, how strong you are. Eventually, the people understood that there would come a time where someone's going to be beating your ass in the ring. Even with Mayweather. Think about Maidana 1. Even if Mayweather won the boxing match, it was obviously a very close fight. He got beat up. Maidana beat his ass up in that first fight. Without question. Without question. He may have lost the boxing fight, but he beat him up. And that's potentially the best fighter, defensive fighter ever. People are saying he's the GOAT. Maybe. I don't think so. But he's certainly up there. He's certainly in the discussion. Let's put it that much about Mayweather. He's in discussion of the top 10 greatest fighters ever. For sure. So, and he was getting beat up by Maidana. It takes the characteristics, of a fighter to do it. Mayweather was able to handle getting beat up. You will kind of also see with Ward. Kovalev beat his ass in that first fight. I don't know how the judges scored it for Ward, but whatever. Regardless, is that Ward got beat up that first fight and came back and knocked Kovalev out in the rematch. These kind of things happen. Fighters, you no matter how good you are, you're going to get beat up. Someone can beat you up, or you're having a bad day, but it's going to happen. So you have to be able to weather it. And Diaz, well, I actually owe him an apology, because in the pre-fight, I mentioned that Diaz was a league lower or a league worse than Navarrete simply because of his performance against Shakur Stevenson and how Shakur kind of shut him out. Well, you can be harsh when you talk about fighters, and I think I was being more harsh on Diaz than I needed to be, because he proved tonight that regardless of where he is as a skilled boxer, a technical boxer, he has one of the biggest boxing hearts you can imagine. Just go watch the 12th. Even when they finally called it off, when his corner called it off and the ref stopped the fight with 20 seconds left, he was up and he was ready to go, even though he had nothing left. He had nothing left in him. That was a man who was, you heard Margarito say this often. You hear Mexican fighters say it very often. I'm going to die in this ring tonight. I do not care. Do not stop the fight. I'm willing to die. In Diaz, he was clearly very much, content with giving his last breath in that ring. So again, hats off to both these guys. Hats off to Diaz. Hats off to Navarrete, who was, showing to be a very good, very, 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 very good featherweight. And I think he's going to be a problem for absolutely anybody. Hell, he's probably the best in featherweight right now. Well, you know what? Let me not say that, because Mr. Gary Russell himself is still over here, and Gary Russell is one of the, he's up there with like the most wasted potential I've seen recently. Like if you imagine Zab Judah as a bunch of wasted potential, Gary Russell's up there simply because his caliber is so high, his skill level, his talent level is so high, but he's not really fought anybody. Like he had the Lomachenko fight and he was beat quite clearly, but there's no shame to be beat by Lomachenko, and especially because that fight was fought on the outside, well, in the pocket, really. Yeah, you're not going to beat Lomachenko over there, and that was a prime Lomachenko. Like, you just weren't going to beat him. You have to be, like, one of the things that can happen with Lomachenko is that some people may be underestimating him a little bit, and at 135, but at 126, guys, no. Like, forget about it. You have to be one of the greatest absolutely ever to beat Lomachenko at 126. And even probably 130. Like, this is not a joke. Lomachenko is significantly undersized for where he is at 135. So Gary Russell losing to a prime Lomachenko at 126 is not at all embarrassing. So Gary Russell is a very high-level talent who is just not, he just doesn't have the resume for what his skills are. But here we are, seeing him against Navarrete would be like quite something. We have Kid Galahad. We got, I don't think Leo Santa Cruz is coming back. So realistically, we got a two-man division up here. 3 if you really want to count the British fighters. But you know what I tell you about British fighters? You don't bet on British fighters. No, I'm joking. But Warrington is not after that kind of upset. He's got to get a rematch or something. Until you find Mauricio Lara again, you can forget about Warrington. So realistically, we wind up having Gary Russell and Navarrete for supremacy at featherweight. And who do I think is better? I don't know. Does Navarrete win? Maybe. Maybe not. But I think that's the only fight left to be made for him here, because this is not a very strong division. You kind of have to make this fight against Gary Russell and move on. Especially, and also Navarrete, he looked significantly bigger than Diaz. And in the points, he looks much stronger. Like the first knockout on the 4th, that quick, slick, lunging uppercut that he easily lands. It was, this guy has a lot of skill, and he can easily move up. He can fill in that frame. He looked really thin in this fight. So you can definitely go up and see the Shakur Stevenson of the world at Super Feather. I mentioned Lomachenko earlier. Well, we got a fight for him. June 26th against Masayoshi Nakatani. I already hear people saying this is an easy fight for Lomachenko. No. This is not an easy fight for the 33-year-old undersized Lomachenko. Guys, this is going to be a real fight. Absolutely. He's fighting the significantly taller and very durable and strong Masayoshi Nakatani. If you guys remember, Nakatani gave Teofimo Lopez a very good fight in a losing 12-round effort. A very good fight. He was competitive. Absolutely. Yeah, the scores were wide, but he was competitive in that fight. He upset Felix Verdejo, and Verdejo landed the kitchen sink on him as well. Nakatani was down twice before rallying back. This is a guy who's going to take a lot of punishment against Lomachenko. So, everyone's saying this is going to be an easy walk-through fight. Incorrect. This is a pretty difficult fight that Lomachenko grabbed in the post fight and in I guess the fight following his Teofimo loss. You know, obviously Teofimo saying he's not giving him a rematch and he's going to fight Kambosos, which is fine. But Nakatani is a very serious fighter, and I think that Lomachenko's going to have to move a lot. He's going to have to move a lot in this fight. I think he can absolutely outbox and keep this a wide decision, but he's going to have to use his feet. And like I said, the problem with using your feet for defense and offense, which Lomachenko does, is that now that you're in your mid-30s now at 33, your feet are just not as fast. Or even if they are as fast, they can't be as fast for as long as they could when you were, let's say, 6 years younger, 10 years younger. So, you know, you're fighting a guy who was able to not only weather the storm against both Teofimo and Verdejo, he was able to come back and knock out Verdejo and really kind of make it uncomfortable for Teofimo. So I think the height's going to play a big role here. Lomachenko, he punches, if you look at the way he, especially with Linares, the one benefit that he has when fighting slightly taller fighters is that Lomachenko's a better body puncher than he is a head puncher. I know everyone keeps noticing and keeps looking at his beautiful work that he does upstairs, and he does do beautiful work upstairs. But his real power comes from his body shots. As a matter of fact, if you look at his very first knockout that he had, his very first fight was his first knockout, he had against Jose Luis Ramirez. He caught Ramirez with a wonderful uppercut or hook to the body, let's say. I think it was an uppercut. Ramirez wound up rolling over from the pain. Lomachenko also wound up stopping Linares with a body shot. You know, he weakens. Anthony Crolla wound up getting hurt a lot to the body before he was finally stopped. Lomachenko is a very good body puncher. Very good body puncher. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons I felt he couldn't like turn himself on against Teofimo in the first 6 rounds outside of the supposed shoulder injury was he couldn't quite land on him. Teofimo is quicker than he looks. It was eventually that Teofimo slowed down just a little bit, and Lomachenko's game of he's a very precise fighter, very accurate fighter, and very high level of timing. Starting time Teofimo, he basically won the last 5 or 6 rounds. I just think, unfortunately, he gave away the first 6 of 6. So you wound up having, him losing 1 through 6, then winning 7 through 11 pretty much, and then losing the 12th, which is kind of how I had it, I think, with the second round being close. So, so Lomachenko, he's like I said, he's a very good body puncher. So over here against the taller Nakatani, who kind of he's a little bit awkward. He doesn't look like a good fighter. That's some fighters are deceptive like that. Some fighters don't look like they're good or they can really land. You know who had this problem? John Molina. Every time I've ever seen John Molina fight, he looks like he shouldn't be in the ring in there. And yet he's going giving a very amazing effort against Matisse in a fight of the year. I was 8 years ago now, 6 years ago. Then he winds up beating Ruslan Provodnikov, which was quite insane. At the time, Ruslan was still one of the guys at 140. And a few years ago, 4 years ago, he wound up actually knocking out Redkach. And at that time, Redkach, we didn't know that he was going to be the kind of fighter that he turned out to be, especially his previous performance. Insane. But just because Nakatani may look a little awkward, a little uncoordinated, maybe doesn't some fighters pass the eye test, Nakatani doesn't, but he passes the fight test. Who cares how good you look if you can't beat anyone? You got to win. And Nakatani, as he proved with his valiant effort against Teofimo, with his come from behind win against Verdejo, proved that he can fight regardless of what he looks like. So this is, like I said, this is going to be a difficult fight for Lomachenko. I think Lomachenko's key to victory is, to see how the shoulder healed. If the shoulder's healed and he can land on the body at will, I don't know if he necessarily stops Nakatani, but he should win comfortably with using his speed. But if Lomachenko is slowing down little by little, like I said, gain of millimeters. He doesn't need to slow down much. Nakatani's significantly bigger. Lomachenko's 5'7", Nakatani's 5'10", 5'11". So, actually, he's 5'11 and a half. Jeez. So, we're talking about a significantly bigger guy. And the bigger you are, the harder you're gonna hit, the more your body's gonna work. If there's any clinching, it benefits Nakatani. You don't want to have a bigger guy laying on you or clinching with you. One of the things, but I think Lomachenko learned, but one of the things Lomachenko's first loss against Salido must have taught him is that you can really work in that clinch. Lomachenko got outworked in that clinch. Yes, it was dirty. Yes, there was low blows. Yes, there were elbows. Welcome to the pro game. Don't stay in the Olympics for too long, ladies and gentlemen. Lomachenko was a great, Hall of Fame fighter already. He could have been one of the greatest fighters ever. He's not going to do that anymore. He doesn't have the time. He's already on the decline. But if everything had happened 4 years prior to when it did, Lomachenko's resume could have already been completely stacked. Who knows? Anyway, that's it for the Lomachenko-Nakatani fight. We'll talk about it some more as it approaches, as it gets closer, as we find out more information about it, maybe some more rumors. Let's move on to, we got a little bit of drama with Billy Joe Saunders fight. Now, I think this is actually partly selling it on Billy Joe's part. Billy Joe's complaining that there are no judges from Britain or from England. It's like, whatever, dude. Like, these are the same, like, Fury and Saunders will complain about this stuff while at the same time saying like how they'll never fight in Great Britain because they're discriminated against gypsies, traveling gypsies, and yada, yada, yada. I think this is all part of the fight game. I think this is all to get in people's heads. This is all to put things in suspense, which is good stuff. But I think you have to call it what it is. It's Billy Joe just talking. It's not necessarily, I don't think it's to be taken seriously. I do think this fight goes to the decision. I don't think anyone's getting stopped here. I think this is one of those like where you're looking at the over under. You're taking the over or you're taking the decision every time. Billy Joe's gonna get, like I told you, I've said it before in the previous podcast, he's gonna be on his bicycle. But Canelo recently said he's actually not going up to 175 again. And the Kovalev fight looks more and more like what it is, which was a naked belt grab. They saw the difficulty Kovalev had and the kind of fight Kovalev had against Yarde, and they realized right now, let's take it. And even in the Kovalev fight, Canelo looked small for 175. Kovalev was actually able to keep him at bay with jabs for quite a long time. He didn't get knocked out until the 11th, and up until that point, it was a pick and fight. There's a lot of like historical revision going on where Canelo just came in and dominated Kovalev. Absolutely not. That did not happen. He came in there and he was getting jabbed a lot. I remember seeing. I thought it was like 5-5 or something like that after 10. If I'm not mistaken, I haven't watched the fight again. I'm not going to. Probably not anyway. But it wasn't the one-sided fight. I remember going into the 11th, I'm like, man, I thought Canelo would probably be able to get Kovalev a little more. Just Kovalev seemed like he couldn't throw the right. So Canelo was doing the right thing here. I've said it before. You do not need to fight anybody who's at 175 if you're Canelo. You're just too small, height-wise and power-wise. Better be too big, no way. Bivol, he's really more. He's actually a 168 pounder like you, but you don't want to meet him at 175 where he's going to comfortably make weight. He may be too fast up there. You don't want to fight a guy like that. Like, as a matter of fact, one of the ways that Billy Joe has a chance in this fight is by using his faster feet. I've mentioned in previous podcasts that Canelo, while he has great defense, great power, great jabs, great head movement, his legs are not so fast. And Bivol's are going to be really fast. So there's really no one there to fight at 175 for him. Like, it's not about him being a coward or what. No, Canelo has fought everyone he needs to fight. He doesn't need to go up to 175 or cruiserweight or whatever, mythical divisions you want to invent to go prove himself. He's proving himself just fine. He has the most stacked resume in boxing right now, outside of Pacquiao. But he has the most stacked resume in boxing, and he's done it because he fights everybody. He does not, like I said, he does not need to go up there to 175 and fight any of these champs. Y'all just want to see him lose, and I don't care to see a fighter lose taking on challenges that aren't really quite challenges, but more like suicide missions. And then the final news of this episode, we have Triller, the one who just put on the Jake Paul Ben Askren fight card, is suing apparently like 10 websites for illegally streaming their stuff, and we all know them. What these websites are exactly the ones that you think. No chance. I mean, I have no idea how they're going to get these. These sites are, I don't know where their servers are located, but it's not happening. Many people have tried to sue these sites to take this down. No, we all watch the same pay-per-views on there, throwing thrown by whether it be UFC or boxing or whatever. Triller is they're wasting their time with litigation. We all know it ain't happening. Next time, let's get, instead of wasting your time and money on this, let's figure out the next show we can put on. Because like I said, my non-boxing fans loved that pay-per-view. They loved it. Thought it was great. Plus, if Triller sold between 1.3 and 1.5 million pay-per-views, if that's true, at $50 a pop, Triller, you made a lot of money. You made a lot of money. So everybody relax. If you can keep putting on every 3-4 months a pay-per-view event that generates 1.5 million buys, you have a very successful business. Let me tell you that much. Very successful. So, worry about that. Get Jake Paul in there with somebody else. Maybe see what happens what Conor does with Poirier 3. If Conor loses, get Conor a retirement fight for a lot of money against Jake Paul. It'll be a win-win for everybody. If not, figure out some other guy who's been training to fight. Maybe put in Jake Paul against someone who's seen a pair of hands, unlike Ben Askren. Who knows? We'll find out. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me. We're gonna talk more on Thursday. We're gonna talk about this weekend's upcoming fights. We're gonna talk about the Katie Taylor fight. So stay tuned for Thursday. It's over.
I'm gonna go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.